Well, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm still Robert Winters.
Yes, you are.
Right. So we talked sort of a little bit more roundabout about just sort of general things related to election. I thought maybe what we could do is get into a little bit more of the particulars this time here. Again, the big stuff happening next week when I've got data to work with.
Right.
So we certainly talked about, and we probably should touch upon the school committee as well, but let's just sort of walk through the council first.
Okay.
You know, there was the question of who won and who lost. So I think there's some of the most noticeable things going from 2013 to 2015 was a big increase in number one votes for Nadeem Mazen.
Yes.
There was a tremendous drop in number one votes for Leland Cheung, who was...
Should we go to this or you want not yet? Because this only goes up to the...
We could do that. I tell you what, why don't we just sort of pop over here and we can look at the number one count here and
wait a minute.
See if we can do that.
Whoops. I forgot how to do this.
Like maybe this.
Oh, wait a minute.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay.
You got to do a heavy-handed swipe.
Yes, you do. All right.
So
what are we looking at here? This is
right, so this is the unofficial results. So it's after all the auxiliary ballots were included. So this is on Wednesday, November 4th, and at the end of the day. Now, in the end, it's just slightly off the screen here, but I'll just say that in the end, the election quota was 1,785. And if you look over there, what you'll see is that there were actually, I would say there were three candidates who were kind of first-tier candidates. Nadeem Mazen, who is a little bit above quota at 1929, so he had 144 surplus ballots to give. And then there was Denise Simmons, who was just shy of quota, and David Marr was a little bit further down, but those are the ones who are over 1,600, so they're sort of in the ballpark.
Yes.
And then came sort of the middle tier ones, you know, Craig Kelly at 1433, Tim Toomey at 1416, Jan Devereaux, as many of us expected, was going to become what Glenn Cucci used to call the pretty new face, the candidate who people sort of vote for because they're a new candidate. And to some degree, she got much higher numbers at the expense of Dennis Carlone, who, though he was ultimately elected, came in 11th in terms of
the first count.
Votes.
Yeah.
So after Jan Devereaux was Mark McGovern at 1202, Leland Cheung at 1188, Dennis Benzan at 1158, Minka Van Buzegum at 1014, and Dennis Carlone at 1001.
Wow. Right?
And then comes the next tier of candidates. There were really two, and most of us kind of understood that the viable candidates pretty much included the ones we just named, plus Mariko Davidson, who was an attractive new candidate, and Mike Connolly, who was very closely affiliated with some of these campaigns at 840. Most of us, I think, kind of understood that neither Connolly nor Davidson were likely to win, but we sort of expected that they would sort of do okay. How okay, we didn't know. There was a lot of unknowns, quite honestly. Even those of us who sort of tend to predict these things reasonably well, we really didn't know because some of it is very much unseen these days. And then there was pretty much a big drop-off after that, down into the 200s, including, you know, some people were focusing on all these slates and such. So Nadeem Mazen had a slate with, ultimately with himself and Mariko Davidson and Romaine Waite. There was a fourth person who dropped off. As expected, Romaine Waite really wasn't quite the darling of that slate, so he got shy of 300, which isn't too bad.
Yeah.
But it was really going to be Mariko Davidson and Nadeem. Now, because Nadeem Mazen had in excess of quota, we cannot, until I see the ballot data, there's no way to know how many Davidson ones had a Mazen 2 or how many Mazen ones had a Davidson 2. So if you want to see a real measure of the strength of the slate, then you would sort of need to have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the way the election proceeded, so Mazen had 144 extra ballots to give, right? Again, that may change slightly on Friday, but not by much. And they kind of spread all over the map, quite honestly. But the standout amongst the 144 was the 37 that went to Davidson, so that was definitely the person within the slate. But Dennis Carlone actually did better than Romaine Waite, who was the other person on the slate. And even David Marr got more votes, second preference votes off of Mazen than did Romaine Waite, who was on Mazin's slate. So you could go figure.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a relatively small number. It's 144 surplus ballots is not really a huge number.
Yeah.
When you're talking about out
Right.
of a quota of 1787, was it 1785?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, most of what happens in the subsequent rounds are relatively boring. You know, anybody who was under 50 gets all counted out at once. So that included Xavier Dietrich, who only got 27 votes. The write-ins, there were only 27 write-ins. And John Sanzone, who had essentially dropped out of the race, though he's still on the ballot. So they were counted out. Then we counted out Plinio de Goys. James Williamson didn't break the Mendoza line, as we like to say. Didn't break 100. Nor did Kim Courtney, nor did Greg Morey. So ultimately, those were sort of the very, very bottom of the barrel candidates. So once they were gone, things got a little more interesting. Gary Mello had gained a few votes by the time we got to his count, 146. You know, but again, he was nowhere near anything close to contention. Then it was Elon Levy. Now, Elon Levy is sort of a curious candidate. He was not affiliated with a particular slate.
Right.
But he was sort of a single issue candidate. He wanted to basically destroy Plan E, get rid of the manager form of government and things like that. So he had 187 ballots by the time he was counted out. Now I think if we can scroll down.
To get to the second page.
I think you can go down to the second page.
Oh,
like this.
good.
Here we go.
There we go.
Yeah, just sort of see the exciting and thrilling conclusion here.
Okay.
Right. Actually, if you scroll down a little bit more, it'll actually expose the quota. Whoops. There we go.
No. Wait a minute.
That's the very. So go down one more. Yeah, I hate these Macintosh. Here we go. Just enough to show the quota. That's it, right there. Perfect.
Okay, we don't need to see the very top. Okay.
Now, a candidate Mahoney, Paul Mahoney, when he counts out, I mean, he
did pretty well. He stuck in there, huh?
He's a town guy, born and raised here, longtime firefighter. Actually did, pretty well. 275 ballots for a guy who basically raised $100.
Right.
Spent about $100. So
really?
He did.
Oh my goodness.
So very effective, but hardly in contention. And most of his ballots went to what we would call traditional independent candidates like Tim Toomey and David Marr, who I believe is actually his cousin.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Romaine Waite, who was a slate candidate with Mazin, though technically also on the Residents Alliance slate, but everybody knows the Residents Alliance slate was really Devereaux, Carl, and Connolly with two others.
Yeah.
So those 321 Waite votes actually kind of spread around, but Mariko Davidson got 72 of them. So so there was at least one indication of the fact that there was at least some piece of that
slate that made a difference.
That was definitely biasing things a little bit. But other than that, Dennis Benzan got 34. Normally, without the slate, I imagine he would have done much better. One would have expected, for a lot of reasons, that people who voted for Romaine Waite, number one, probably should have seen a lot more Dennis Carlone votes as number twos, but that didn't happen. So anyway, that was done. Then we count out Connolly. Connolly was very much central Cambridge Residents Alliance type of candidate. And as you can see, he's counted out with 954 ballots, 260 of which go to Dennis Carlone, who he had worked for.
Right.
He was actually working as a
that actually really helped Dennis Carlone, didn't it?
Well, arguably, if Connolly had never been a candidate in the first place,
then
Carlone would have had much higher number one totals.
Right.
So basically, Connolly borrowed them and then gave them back.
Gave them back. All right.
Yeah. But also, so 121 went to, well, actually, 189 went to fellow Slate member Devereaux. So you can start to see in terms of Connolly numbers the existence of that Residents Alliance slate of candidates in there. You certainly don't; those numbers are much higher than you see for other candidates. So anyway, when he's out there, then this is where it was sort of interesting. I should say not quite yet. When you get to the next person counted out is Mariko Davidson, who actually did pretty well.
She did.
Remember this past council had one woman one woman councilor, Denise Simmons. I think there were a lot of people, women voters, who kind of were favoring women candidates this time. In fact, you can kind of see some evidence of that when you see a candidate like Davidson being counted out. So you see, even though she was not on a slate with Jan Devereaux ends up being the greatest beneficiary of those ballots
Yeah.
as a fellow, I shouldn't say a fellow woman, that sounds wrong, right?
Right.
Right? And then Minka
But
van
also
Buzicum.
their positions were somewhat similar.
That's right.
Yeah.
But she's also has part Asian, as is Leland Cheung. So you see 175 ballots go to Leland Cheung. So I would interpret that as something of an ethnic leaning
Interesting.
there
Huh.
as well. But they're also relatively young.
Could be an
and
MIT connection.
Could be an MIT connection as well.
Yeah.
But, so there's always multiple
Sure.
factors to these things.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's interesting, I don't know that we'll go back and do this all in horrible, excruciating detail, but in the preliminary ballots, at this point of the count, when you count out Davidson, at that point, Dennis Benzan was ahead of Minka van Buzicum, so that in the preliminary results, what happened is that Minka van Buzicum was counted out next, and Dennis Benzan was counted out last. Now, that had a kind of a curious effect. In the preliminary count, you can kind of see here, this is what we're showing on the screen now, are the unofficial order of election. So let me just sort of I'll just read it off
Oh,
here and
because
say.
this is different than what you're showing here.
So on Tuesday night, without those auxiliary ballots, the order at that point of the count between Benzan and Minka van Buzicum switched. At one point, it was 4 votes ahead. I think Minka was 4 votes ahead in the unofficial, but previously it was Dennis Benzan was 4 votes ahead. So because the one candidate counted out first, it really changed things. So originally Minka was the one who was counted out first, and her ballots then were used to feed certain candidates. So certain people were in the process of getting elected earlier because of her being counted out earlier, and they were very different than those who were elected in the actually unofficial count the following day. So in the first day, the order of election was Mazin first, Simmons second, Devereaux third, David Marr fourth, Craig Kelly fifth, let's see where we go, Carlone sixth, Leland Cheung seventh, Tim Toomey eighth, and Mark McGovern was elected ninth.
So this was
was on Tuesday night.
Tuesday night before midnight?
It was just the Tuesday night ballots, not including the ones that
Okay,
the
'cause
auxiliary
it
ballots
changed
from Wednesday.
quite a bit.
So what happened then on Wednesday when they included the auxiliary count, there were all the total numbers went up a little bit, but there was also a little switch in the order.
Yeah.
And because you count out Benzan first, and he was part of the Unity slate, when he's counted out, his ballots then transfer to help elect Unity slate candidates earlier than would have happened when Minka was counted out first. All right, there was a long shot chance that that the person who was elected might have actually been different. Could have been Benzan versus Carlone or Minka versus Carlone. But that was such a long shot, I didn't think that was really going to happen. But as a result of the switcheroo, now instead of somebody like Tim Toomey being elected 8th, he's now elected 5th.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of Carlone being elected 6th, he's elected last and 9th in the actual count. So that in the end, the people who are elected, it's on the screen here right now. I don't know if we have to run through it here, but it's Mazin, Simmons, Marr. Devereaux is elected earlier. Kelly actually wasn't elected until 7th in this round in here.
Yeah.
Anyway, it all kind of got shuffled around, but it was still the same winners ultimately.
Right, but don't you think politicians pay attention to that order?
Well,
I
think there's a lot of
wonder.
I think they either wonder about it or else it's just sort of it kind of hurts them personally. You don't want to be the person who was elected, who squeaked in at the end.
Especially if in years past, if you've been running, you were much higher.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to us.
Back to us.
Here we are.
So I can just paint numbers on me
yes.
if we want.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay.
All right. So
wow.
So there are a number of things, sort of observations. Again, there's so much more we could say when we actually have ballot data to work with. But there's some things that I'll say. It's funny to me. I actually the day after the first election, the Tuesday night results, and then again on Wednesday, my phone starts ringing off the hook. People saying,
because people want to
Robert,
know.
Here's what I think happened, or else, Robert, what do you think happened? I've seen people writing on neighborhood listservs, giving their theory about everything. So there's a lot of people want to speculate. In a way, it's sort of nostalgic, like the old days at the Longfellow, when as the counts were going, everybody was theorizing, walking around with clipboards and stuff.
Yeah.
So that little bit has been happening here. A lot of it put to rest when we get ballot data, but for now, I guess I'll just read off a few observations that I would make. One is when I finally see the ward and precinct data, I'm expecting to see even higher turnout from wards 9, ward 11, some of the ones sort of in the sort of more upper crusty parts of town. And I think that actually was a pretty important
Isn't
factor.
everything upper crusty these days?
Well, it's funny. In a lot of the parts of Cambridge, we thought it was it's sort of don't go there. Has now become, you got to buy there, right?
Well, yeah, you bring that up maybe later.
Yeah.
Talk the affordable housing thing.
Yeah.
What's versus, what do they mean by affordable, right?
Oh yeah.
Nothing's affordable.
As we've said earlier, the overall turnout was 17,951. 2 years ago, it was 17,851. So it was like 100 ballots more, which is actually going to make it easier to do the comparisons from year to year, because we can say the total number hasn't changed. I don't have to scale anything down. I can just work with it as is. It's great.
Yeah.
The same, there were 105 invalid ballots this time. There were 106 last time. And I can tell you, having looked at the ballot data, and most of the invalid ballots are ballots that voters purposely cast as blanks.
So just protest almost?
Either that, I said they only came out to vote in a school committee race, or else I just came to vote. I don't care about these people.
Or what if they just voted it wrong? Oh, they're given a chance to.
The thing is, if a ballot appeared to be blank, then the election commission looks at it on Wednesday, and there are what they call Cheerio ballots, where somebody circles the numbers so they don't fill in the bubbles. So the scanner might not see that, but the human eyes will look at it and say, this person clearly wanted to vote this way, so they didn't fill out a substitute ballot, and they pass that through the scanner, and it gets recorded with the voter's true intent.
Okay, because you told me that before that the election person taking in the scanner, it'll pop out if it's not conforming to the bubbles.
That's right.
So how come that one didn't pop out?
Because if somebody says, well, that's the way I want to vote it, and then you go, okay, press the button, override.
Oh, so it did get spit out, and then they put it in again, saying this is the way I want to vote.
Or they can do two things. One, it can get scanned in, it'll be read as blank, and as a result, there's a divider in the machine that actually sends it not this way, but that way.
Okay, so that it never got spit out, but it did get separated.
Yeah. No, another thing is somebody says, well, I want to do this, and then here it is, and they can just stick it in the side component, the side chamber, and then it'll be looked at on Wednesday. So we try and make sure every voter intent is respected as maximally as possible.
Okay.
Right. Another observation I would make about this, and especially in regard to, Dennis Benson is the one candidate, the incumbent who wasn't elected. He also happens to be the candidate who raised and spent the most money.
Yes.
So, people say a lot about the importance of slates. People talk about the influence of money on politics. So one observation I said is people put far too much faith in money and slates. Slates were a factor. They were a factor of maybe not so much in the election of any individual, but maybe in saying, well, why one group of people managed to get 3 seats rather than 2 seats, or 6 seats versus 7 seats, or whatever. So they have a factor in that regard. But if you want to win an election, the slate's not going to get you there. You still have to run your effective retail level ground campaign, #1 votes. Go to the football game where your kids play. Shake the bushes, shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies. You name it. Bring your people out to vote.
It's relationships.
And you can't buy that, and you can't put a skywriter up in the sky and say vote for Joe Schmo. That's not going to do it. So the money isn't as important as some people make it out. That said, people who didn't spend a hell of a lot of money, other than Craig Kelly, who never spends a lot of money, on the school committee side, who spends very little but always does extremely well.
Who's on the school? Oh, Fred.
Freddie.
Oh, yeah.
Freddie, yeah.
When he said he never had a website or doesn't.
He doesn't. Then he does. He's always near the top of the ticket.
Yeah, I know.
So, so the thing is that let that be understood. Is that Craig Kelly goes out there and he does a hardcore retail level campaign, connects with his people. He does well. Freddie Fantini spends very little money, no website, does very, very well. Yeah. Remember that, candidates. If you want to make it, just remember that. All right. One other thing is, as I mentioned, that there seemed to be a lot more interest, I think, based on issues in the western part of the city. There's a lot of talk about development in LY for general,
housing and who lives here and who.
Yeah, some of that, and also just concerned about traffic and a perception, whether real or imagined, about
Right.
traffic congestion caused by new development. I
Right.
think it's demonstrably true that that's not caused by new development; it's caused by people driving through Cambridge.
Yeah.
But so be it. It got people agitated. People came out and voted. Several people have said to me, and I'm tending to agree with them, that there was this group that called itself the Unity Slate that had 7 incumbents on it. So they would love to have gotten 7 seats. They got 6. So why did they get 6 rather than the full 7?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, they didn't have any candidates feeding it, right? So arguably, if Minka was part of the slate, maybe she would have helped elect 7, or maybe she would have been the 7th one elected.
Yeah.
Now we 2020 hindsight, right?
Sure.
That's certainly a possibility. But I've heard it said that candidate Leland Cheung went from a very, very high surplus, which would have elected others. He was spending so much time working on this slate, which was good in many ways, but he didn't work. I don't think he worked hard enough on his own number 1 count.
Yeah.
And so his number 1 totals plummeted. There's also the factor that some people say, well, he's safe, therefore I'll give my number 1 to somebody else.
He's always gotten lots of votes, but.
Well, not always, but it's been rising.
Years past, he used to be the number 1 vote.
Well, 2 in a row, yeah.
2 in a row.
Yeah, so the thing is that people who were viewed as safe didn't necessarily get in there. So anyway, some of the people, David Marr was mayor. Arguably, I might argue that he somehow should have exceeded quota. He should have gotten more than a quota of votes.
Yeah.
He came up a little shy, so he needed to soak up votes from other people, right, to get elected. So then that made it harder for a 7th person to get in as well.
Right.
I think that's a good argument to make that. I sort of feel pretty good about when I said these are the ones who I think are viable and these ones are not viable, that all turned out to work out pretty much as is. The slates were somewhat effective, I think, maybe in terms of getting a little bit of selectivity, but ultimately I kind of worked out some of the numbers on these. I don't know if I necessarily have it here, but if just on the number 1 votes, the so-called Unity Slate had a total of 9,747 number 1 votes, which if you divide by quota translates into about 5.5 seats. Now 5.5 seats guaranteed, pretty much. And then there were other candidates, and randomly here we'll bring that up to 6, but I don't think there was any way it was going to be 7. The Residents Alliance slate, at least the core members of their slate, basically which is Devereaux, Carlo, and Connolly, constituted 3,148 number 1 votes, which is about translates into about 1 3/4 seats. Of course, there are no such things as fractional seats.
Right.
And the Mazin grouping, there was some crossover here. Let's be clear about that.
Wasn't Mazin also part of the Cambridge Resident Alliance?
Yes, yeah, but in terms of who the real associations were, Mazin, Davidson, Waits, and Zone, they had 3,056, which is about 1.7 seats. So together, they owned about 3 seats, I think.
Right.
There was some issue about how it would break one versus the other, but so it's basically the so-called Unity Slate sort of won the election in the sense that they have a 2-to-1 advantage, which is huge.
Right.
But so ultimately, I imagine that means they'll probably have the control of who's going to be the next mayor. All right, so that's certainly to be said. I'm dying to see what all the number 2 preferences are on all the various ballots. Like a Mazin 1, was that a Davidson 2? Was that a Waite 2? Was that a Carlone 2? What was this? And vice versa. So
compared to 2013, they've actually gained a seat then, because you now have Devereaux, Connolly, and
arguably, yeah. I think that's the only way to say it. Is
that, of the 7.
Yeah, and I think most of us who kind of were handicapping this race here kind of saw that as inevitable.
Yeah.
That there was going to be.
Well, really? That you thought one of the incumbents was going to be knocked off?
Yeah, because Devereaux was sort of the pretty new face. That was the strong candidate coming out of the highest turnout.
We should clarify that he said that about male candidates too, right?
Everybody. Anybody.
New face is just
pretty
very
new face,
generic, right?
It's totally generic.
But she does have a pretty new
face. Yeah. But the thing is that, the same thing happened, every election seems to have a few candidates who people just think, wow, who's this person?
Yeah. Well, the last election was Benzan and Azim and Connolly
four years ago, Leland, I think it was 4 years ago or 6, Leland Cheung was the pretty new face. And
6 years ago. This is like
may have
third
been
or fourth,
6 years
yeah.
now, yeah. So the thing is, it
Yeah.
varies, but there's always
Right.
somebody who's sort of the attractive new candidate who's going to sort of draw somebody. But I'll tell you, people on the school committee side know that it works the other way. You can be the pretty new face one
Right.
year and the forgotten soul 2
Right,
years
because
later.
we haven't talked about that, but we should probably, we have a couple minutes left.
Yeah,
we
we can
should
sort of
probably
say
talk about
quickly that on the school committee side,
Right, do you have a thing here? Let's see. I
we
can
could,
maybe-
we could do that. It actually was part of that same document at the
Oh,
end.
was it?
Yeah.
All right.
But on the
Well,
school
you-
committee
go ahead,
side,
you-
what
you
happened
talk about
was is
that,
that there were two candidates who were elected new last time, Kathleen Kelly and Frank Cronin. Kathleen Kelly held her base, as we say in the trade,
Yeah,
which was really very much the same base as people like Mark McGovern and Marjorie Decker, plus a lot of other people. Frank Cronin, on the other hand, was one of the attractive new candidates last time, but they were new attractive new candidates this time. So she had not really grown a political base. So Monica Bowman was one of the new faces,
I'm not doing
as
this
was
very
Emily
well.
Dexter. Emily Dexter, I
Right.
would argue, also. Well, we only got a minute left anyway,
Yeah,
so let's
forget
not
it.
worry about it.
Yeah.
We'll do
this,
we'll go crazy.
So
data
it's
next
Emily
week anyway.
Dexter and
Monica Bowman.
Monica Bowman
Yeah,
got in.
so they were the new attractive ones, and the person who paid the price, because there was
Right.
one vacancy also,
Right,
was actually Frank Cronin. Mervyn wasn't running.
right, so there was a
right.
vacancy, but she
Yeah.
lost, yeah.
Freddie Fantini got almost the same number of votes. See,
Yeah.
constant Freddie. So Patty Nola's number dropped somewhat significantly, but I don't think she campaigned as hard as she has in some elections. And there was a candidate like Emily Dexter, I think probably were probably
Yes.
siphoning some of those votes that might otherwise be Patty Nola's
Because she's
votes.
a sort of a data person. And
Yeah,
she's
kind of
done-
data driven.
Yeah,
So it would appeal to a certain
yeah.
group. So anyway, we'll go crazy with data next week.
Yes, be interesting.
But until then, this has been another edition of
Cambridge Inside Out. Judy Nathans, Robert Winters.